In this presentation, we'll look at cost center master data. Let's look at some of the master data objects in S4HANA controlling. One is cost elements. Cost elements, you get two categories, primary cost element and secondary cost elements. Primary cost elements are like your revenue and expense accounts. Your secondary cost elements are the ones which you use for allocation. For example, you want to transfer one cost from one cost center to another cost center or more than one cost centers, then you can transfer these costs via a cost allocation object, something like a statistical key figure or a activity type. We will come to that later in our presentations. Then you have cost centers. Cost centers are the departments or divisions of an organization. You can assign expenses and costs to these cost centers. This is the most commonly form used by the cost center to capture expenses, costs, as well as capture expenses via transfer from other cost centers as well. Activity types are like production or service activities provided to the company by a cost center. For example, you might want to transfer from cost or capture a cost via a type of activity like labor or some other production activity. We'll look at activity types also later in our presentations. Statistical key figures are used to allocate costs from one cost center to another cost center. Now, for example, you have an admin cost center which captures all the admin costs, and you want to distribute this admin cost center to your other technical cost centers like your engineering and so production lines and so on. Then you use the statistical key figures to allocate the costs. Example of statistical key figures could be square meters of floor area used, number of staff on payroll, and so on. Statistical key figures is most commonly used in cost center allocations. Let's look at an organizational chart with some cost centers. You can see, as I mentioned earlier, cost centers are like departments and divisions. Now, what you see in these light green shaded boxes are the actual cost centers. For example, under the administration division, you have facilities management, legal, procurement, and so on. These are the actual cost centers. This administration node itself is called a cost center group, and this is all part of a cost center hierarchy. So you might have a top node like company ABC, and you can have different departments or levels like admin, HR, IT, finance, sales, and these are all actually called cost center nodes, or you can call it as a top level node or hierarchy node and so on. Commonly in SAP is used called as a cost center group. Under each of these groups, you have the actual cost centers. So cost centers are the lowest nodes in your cost center hierarchy, and everything else is like a top node. So the cost centers, for example, under IT, you can have technical support, enterprise systems, and so on. And IT is like a cost center group. And on top of this, we have a higher level group called company. You can have multiple cost center groups, and at the lower ends, you can have the actual cost centers. Now let's look at setting up the cost centers. So to create the cost centers, first we must activate the cost center accounting in our controlling area. So let's go to our SPRO menu, and from that we come to controlling and we come to cost center accounting, and you can see activate cost center accounting in controlling area. So let's select that option, and then we have to go and choose the controlling area which you created. This time I'm going to use M000. You can select this option over here, and in this section you can see activate components control indicators. If you have already activated, then there's no issue. You can see now cost center is already activated, but if you're activating for the first time, you come through this option and you activate it over here, cost centers. We want it active, and then you can simply click on save to save the transaction. So that's the first step of activating for cost centers. And then you must also ensure that you have a few company codes which you're going to create the cost centers under. Now currently there are no company codes assigned, so we'll have to assign some company codes as well. So now I'm going to assign a company code to this controlling area. If I just expand this section over here, it will show in more detail assignment of company codes. I have already created one company code called M001. So I'm just going to simply assign that company code to this controlling area. The method you do is just click on new entries over here and just select your company code from here, or if you know, you can just directly type it in as well. M001, it's already coming up over here. And similarly, if you have multiple other company codes which you want to assign to this controlling area, you can specify them as well. For now, I'm just going to put one, and it's asking you, do you want to change fiscal variant in your controlling area M000, and in the master of the assigned company code, just say yes. And it's saying data in company code M001 is not maintained, probably because I have still not assigned the fiscal variant to this company code. So let's go and do that step. Now, to create the cost centers, I'm just going to use the SAP standard menu over here. I'm just going to go to accounting, controlling, cost center accounting. I can go to master data and create it as well. I'll show you two options. One is via the master data option. The other option is via the standard hierarchy option. Standard hierarchy, change. And it's asking for my controlling area M000. As soon as I put this, I've also defined the standard hierarchy for controlling area also as M000. So automatically that hierarchy will pop up over here. Or you can see the information coming up here as well. I'm just going to give a standard hierarchy name. I'm just going to say M000 standard hierarchy. And then underneath that, I'm going to create some sub levels. So first, I'm going to create a cost center group, lower level. So I can call this as, let's say, for example, A01, calling this as admin group, press enter, that one will get created. And if I create another subsection group, I can here, you can see it gives option with the same level or lower level. I'm going to create another same level over here. Call, let's say, just going to keep it simple as B01. Let's say, call it engineering group. And I can create multiple groups like this. And I just have to click on save. Now underneath this admin group, you can create a cost center also. So let me just create one cost center, or maybe I'll create one more over here. On admin, I can just right click, and this time I'm going to create actual cost centers. I'm going to select create cost center over here. Now I need to give an ID. Now how I'm going to define the cost center ID is I'm going to give M001 at the front, because I'm going to create this under M001 company code, and then I will say A001, something like that, or I can say A01. Like if I want, I can go under the A category as admin, or I can just simply go into normal numbers as 001, just to make it more simple as well. Analysis time frame. Now this analysis time frame is very important. Let's say you want to do analysis from 2000, let's say all the way back to 2010 or even 1990 or whatever years you want to do, but it cannot be more less than the or further than the settings which you have specified for your controlling area. If you remember correctly, the controlling area, I think we have put until 2015 to 9999. So that's the furthest you can go back. Now, just to keep it simple, I'm just going to put it as, let's say 0101 2000, and we can put it as 18 maybe, all the way till 3112,999. And let's give this cost center name. Let's call it corporate finance. And we can copy and paste that same thing for the description as well. Description will give you more characters. I think this is about 20 characters and about 50 characters over here. And user responsible, you can give a person's ID, or like say for example a user's ID like U001023, something like that. And you can give the person's responsible name, for example John Smith. You can give the department which they belong to, for example finance. And this cost center category controls some information regarding the cost center indicators, which is on this tab over here. So let's choose something which is already given by the system, which is admin. There's already one over here. I'm just going to use that one. And those basic information are set up over here. Under the organization category, It says user does not exist, so we can't give an user ID. It has to be a pre-existing one. So I'm just going to take that off. Another organization section, you can see I'm just getting a information message. I'm just going to ignore that as well. And then let's wait for the organization because I need to define the company code, to which company code this cost center is belonging to. So I'm not going to specify any business area. I can also specify a profit center, but I have not activated any profit centers, nor have I created any profit centers. So we can look at that later. For now, I think it will automatically assign to company code M001 because only one company code I have assigned to this controlling area. Indicators will show which are the information I can lock. If I select actual primary cost, which means I can't post any primary expenses. If I select this, I can't post any primary plan expenses. Similarly, you got secondary cost. This is regarding the allocation costs. If I lock all this, then I won't be able to post any of this. Generally, for cost center accounting, we only lock the revenues because we don't want to post any revenues to cost center. We want to post the revenues to our profit center or another cost object which picks up revenues. For example, something like a sales order. Generally, you don't have to fill up all this information. You can just bypass of that and you can just simply select save. And if it's successful, you just get a message saying your data has been saved. Now let's create another cost center. This time we'll use the menu path under cost center accounting, master data, the SAP standard menu path over here, accounting, controlling, cost center accounting, master data, and under that we'll go to cost center over here, individual processing, create. So you can also directly type in the transaction code K01 over here and create the cost center as well. You can also use a Fiori app and create the cost center. Let me just go and select this over here, and this time I'm going to specify a cost center ID M001. Let's say I go to 002, and let's use that same range over here. And this time let me create something called procurement. Also it's called the same name. Person responsible, let's say Steve Smith this time. Department, I'll say admin, let's call it like that. Cost center category, I can use that same admin over here. Hierarchy area, that is my standard hierarchy area. I'm going to create this also under A01, which is the group I created under the hierarchy. M000 was the main hierarchy ID. Under that, I created a group called A01. Currency, I'm just going to call it AUD. Only simply going to fill up this information and save the transaction. And I've created another cost center. So now I'll assign the fiscal year variant to the company code. Remember, we created the fiscal year variant V6. We actually chose from an existing fiscal year variant, so we did not have to create a new one. And we simply assigned that fiscal year variant V6 to our controlling area M000. So all the company codes under M000 company code also has to have the same V6 fiscal year variant. So we come to financial accounting global settings, ledger, fiscal year and posting periods. Under that, assign company code to a fiscal year variant. And I'm going to select my company code M001, and here I'm going to assign V6 and then save the transaction. Now let's look into the cost center categories. We saw I put in the cost center category W for admin, which is already predefined in the system. Let's look at in depth what these cost center categories are useful for. So I'm just going to select this define cost center categories option under the SPRO menu. Just show you once again. It's under controlling cost center accounting. This is under the IMG configuration menu. Master data, cost centers, define cost center categories. Under that, you will have some sample cost center categories already provided by the system. And you can see we can use either one of these or we can create our own cost center categories. What these cost center categories control is mainly the control indicators, which you saw in the second or third tab in the cost center master data. For example, which are the items we want to block or lock. Example, the actual primary cost, actual secondary cost, actual revenue, planned primary cost, planned secondary cost, and planned revenue, commitment items. There's also another option called the default functional area for this. We're not going to use any functional area, so main purpose is simply to lock the actual revenues and planned revenues. So using that option, you can see there are plenty of already predefined options given: marketing, development, production, logistics, service cost centers, management, social, sales, admin, and so on. If you want to create your own cost center category, you can just simply choose, create new entries and create your own cost center category. But I would recommend you just use one of those existing ones provided by the system. While we are in financial accounting, let's also do a few more settings for our company code. These are all related to the financial accounting settings. So let's go to financial accounting global settings, global parameters for company code. So let's select enter global parameters and go to our company code M001, and let's go and put right information. So chart of account, so let's put in our chart of accounts M000. We have already assigned the fiscal year variance, that's important. So three important things we need to specify for the company code before we assign the company code to the controlling area. One is chart of accounts, fiscal year variant, and the currency. Now we have all done all those three. Just press enter in your keyboard. And you can also put other information also while you're in the screen. For example, the posting period variant, which you want to assign for your company code. You can choose the 1001, which is a standard one in SAP. Rest all you can probably come and activate later if you require, or you can just simply leave it and save the transaction. Now let's assign the company code to the controlling area. So we saw one way where we saw the controlling area settings for cost center activation, and in that also you can go and assign the company code to controlling area. The other option is to come to enterprise structure, assignment, controlling, assign company code to controlling area. So you can use this method as well. So let's go and select our controlling area M000, and you can see this tab comes up over here as well. And I will just go and select that, select this again, click on new entries, enter the company code details M001, press enter and save the transaction. Now that we have activated cost center accounting, there's one more step we need to create before we do the cost centers. That is to create the cost center standard hierarchy. So we need to create the cost center standard hierarchy before we can start creating the cost centers underneath that. Now the important step also to create the profit center standard hierarchy. We'll come to that later. First, let's look at creating the cost center standard hierarchy. So we come back to activate cost center accounting over here. Select our controlling area M000, and if you double click on this section, and you can see all the information coming up here. Now if you just scroll down, and you will see a mandatory information is required, that is requesting you to define the cost center standard hierarchy. So I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to call it as M000. Now this has to be created first, and is asking, because it does not already exist, the system is going to ask you, should we create this as a standard hierarchy? And we want to say yes, and then system will create as a standard hierarchy M000. Now underneath this you can create your cost centers. Let's look at cost center categories. Cost center categories are typically denoted by a single character in SAP under the cost center master data section. For example, you already have a list of predefined cost center categories provided by SAP. In addition to that, you can create your own cost center categories. Cost center category typically control the master records of cost centers for certain fields. For example, under the cost center master data, you have option whether you want to lock or allow expense postings, revenue postings, allocation postings, and so on. This will be controlled by the indicator in the cost center category. You can group similar cost centers using the cost center categories. For example, under the admin cost center category, you can have your various admin cost centers underneath that. But it's more than sufficient to use the default cost center categories provided by SAP. Now try to practice creating some cost centers in your system. So first activate cost center accounting as I showed in my previous slides. Then create the cost center standard hierarchy. So this way you have to plan ahead to identify what will be your top node, the lower nodes, and then the actual cost centers. And then go on to proceed to create the cost center master data. The usual transaction code in SAP is KS01. You can also use different Fiori apps or go via the cost center standard hierarchy and create your cost centers underneath that.